there, humans and bizarre things, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. Today we're going to be talking about the WZ1111GFT. Oh, the WZ, just as we're going to call it as we roll forward, rather than mashing up a whole bunch of numbers when you know what I'm talking about. This is the Tier 8 Chinese TD, newish to the game, and I got to tell you, I love this tank. And I am not 100% certain why, because on the surface of it, it doesn't seem like a tank that has more going for it than some other TDs that are very, very similar at this tier. The thing that I really have found with the tank that it has going for it, and I don't have anything to back this up other than the anecdotal evidence, is the camo seems very, very nice. And I run this thing... I was actually running it with optics in this game, I think, when I first had a crack at it on the European server. You can see the ping is legit. No, this is North America. But what I think it's a nice blend of stuff at Tier 8 that you don't get a lot of. Like, it's got a 460 Alpha 130mm gun, and that's a solid thing at Tier 8. Most of the TDs at Tier 8 do not have that. You've got your big dog, the Borsig, that gets a 640 Alpha gun. Everything else pretty much just whistles Dixie and doesn't get access to that kind of firepower. Its DPM is not amazing for a Tier 8 TD, 2731 DPM, but at the same time, it's better than most of the tanks you're going to be playing against. Its pen is pretty good for a tank at Tier 8, but it's not amazing for a Tier 8 TD. 245 is right in the middle of the field again. Well, it's towards the top of the middle, but it's not special. There's a lot of Tier 8 TDs too, by the way. Like, if you go and have a look at tank comparison, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's like 17 Tier 8 TDs that are available, both including premiums and tech trees. And I think the thing that really swings it for me is that it's just a nice combo of low slung TD and camouflage, and it makes it a little bit sneaky. It's not super quick, it's not super overpowering in terms of damage, it's not super incredible in terms of armor, and I want to talk about the armor a little bit more as we go forward. But what it has is a gun that does nice pen and good solid alpha rolls. Like 460 alpha is a good roll into a tier, like a Tier 8 heavy will have 1400 hit points. So if you're hitting someone for 460, that's a big-ass chunk of a heavy tank's hit point pool. You can pen the hard guys like the VK100 A1Ps. And I think that is something else that has to be said. The tank, amongst its peers, does very well because a lot of the people that run around at Tier 8 are running around in Tier 8 heavies. And Tier 8 heavies, they aren't possessed of the greatest guns, like the IS-5s, your IS-3s, your IS-6s, your IS-2SHs, your M6A2E1s, all these kind of tanks that are big and buffy, are very much gonna have derpy kind of guns, and that means that you're really gonna be able to bounce some more shots, and you're gonna be able to pen those tanks very easily because they're gonna get odd angles, and that's where your armor works. Your armor is very, very awkward. You've only got 6 degrees of gun depression, but you have 12 degrees either side of the gun, which means you can set up for a shot, hold your camo, and not have to lose it when you track a target until you really do get to move. You can see me wiggling and waggling the gun around there. And I think that's a big part of it for me. It's awkward. You can see there's a lot of angles on that armor, especially against lower tiers. You're going to need about... To reliably pen the front when it's at any kind of angle, it's going to need about 200mm of pen, which is not a lot. Like, there's a lot of tanks at Tier 8 that have that kind of pen all the time. But it can get up towards the early 200s as well. That's a tank you've got to watch out for. Your 34, yeah, that all goes straight through it, right? Traverse-wise, let's talk about the traverse numbers. Again, not amazing, but solid. 35.7, 36 degrees of traverse. That's just grand. That'll move you around the battlefield at a reasonable rate. I mean, it's not really amazing. Again, 35 kilometers an hour is not a great top speed, and you can see here, it's not the mobility that's going to get this thing across the line. It's very much the stealth and the solid pen, and yet, despite the fact that I think there are better TDs at Tier 8, I loved playing this thing. I've actually played it quite a bit now. I've played it a lot, and it's performed very, very well throughout all the games that I've played it. You can see again, utilizing the solid camo, the stealth tactics. It really feels like a proper TD, like with a little bit more advanced in terms of gameplay. Like, you've got to have good, solid tactics to get it to work. It's not like a Jagdpanther where you're going to go flying around the place and go hull down with a very strong upper deck and pump massive amounts of DPM and all that kind of thing into it. It's just got a little bit of everything, and it was enjoyable. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, all the reviews I've done over the years on tanks, all the times I've looked at the numbers, and I can tell you what they are for so many different vehicles, and yet I look at this tank and it really doesn't stand out in any way, shape or form, and it's really also one of the tanks that I feel like I can run into a battlefield and do exceptionally well in. Maybe it just suits that playstyle, and I'm so used to running tanks like the Borsig and things like that, where you've got to be very, very careful with the way you play it. But when you attach that to a gun that's reasonable on a tank that's got a reasonable amount of armor, it suddenly becomes exceptionally effective. Be that as it may, you can see here when the 54 mod 1 pushes on me, it's just within the level, the margin of error for the traverse. Like, it's not, and the 54 mod 1 is a slowish Russian medium. Watch this. This is. There we go. Lovely stuff. Good on your Red Sniper. Roberto Carlos. They're banging in a Red Sniper. So let's move onwards and upwards with this. The thing I like about this tank is that it's very much in keeping with the rest of the line. You play through the 6, the 7 to the 8, and it feels seamless. It's a little incy-wincy bit taller, but at the same time, it's got the same feel, the same shape. A little bit less mobile, a little more punchy on the pen and that kind of thing, and it'll work for you. It's not going to be like a stopgap in the line where you go, I remember back in the day, people would not get to the Leopard 1 because they were like, oh my god, the PTA is such ass. I cannot deal with it. And that's kind of a shame. Like, there's lines like that people just have to get through, like a Death Star line. Everyone wants to drive a Death Star, so they grind through the ATs and come out the other side probably better players for it, because if you can play those kind of tanks, you can actually learn a lot about the game. This is just a solid TD. The better you are at the game, I think the more you'll get out of it. It's certainly got a lot to give, but at the same time, don't expect to jump in this TD and dominate. You're going to have to work at the tactical aspect of the game. You're going to have to make sure you're not left on your own. The sides are thin. The armor is awkward and not at all reliable. It's just an interesting vehicle. And against tier 7s, you'll dominate. You'll smash. Like, the 130mm HE is legit. The 130mm DPM is legit. The armor profile will dominate tier 7 tanks. And that's great. And you should. You're a tier 8 TD. And if you know how to play a tier 8 TD, you should be kicking the crap out of tier 7 tanks. Oh, thank you, mother, for the ammo rack. I would strongly recommend that you do not free XP this tank. It is a fun tank to play, and it provides a really solid degree of support and joy for your team. Do not just free XP this vehicle to get through to the tier 8, tier 9s and the tier 10s. Well worth playing. Save your free XP. Grind this one through. Even the tier 9 gun on it is a solid gun. It's got 2 guns, a tier 10 and a tier 9. The 122mm tier 9 gun will provide you with, 2600 DPM, 2580 DPM, and a reasonable facsimile of this gun right now. Yeah, it's enjoyable, and it's something that I would suggest you should get stuck into. The tier 9 and the tier 10 are interesting. The tier 10 is just bizarre for me. I'm still getting to grips with it, and it's like the tier 10 TD is so funny. The 113, it's just this big fat SU-152 feeling thing, and I don't know if I'm wrong in that. That's how it feels. It's got so thick. It's such a thick booty. Like, the thing is... Well, not really. It's got a big, thick tummy. It's massive around the sides. Anyway, I'll talk about that when I get to it. Look after yourselves, boys and girls. Yeah, until next time. This one's kind of a winner. Bye for now.